Hey girl, you ever wonder what is better, fresh or faux flowers? Basically, can you do fresh or fake? Which looks better? Which costs more? Which costs less? What's the best options out there? When you see these big over-the-top weddings online, you're like, oh my God, how much did that cost? Are they all fresh? Or some of them faux? Well, let's get into how you can make the best decision for your wedding day. Because I think both options are great. And truth be told, planners and florists use both all the time. So what's the best option for you? Now let's get into it. Hey girl, it's Kim, the hostess with the mostest. Now you know I come from a long line of party planning people. I planned my first event on a playground for a friend who was moving away in elementary school. Well, since then, I've gone from planning juice box parties to over-the-top events for many clients. So one of the things we always talk about is faux versus real flowers. What's the best decision for you? So if you're new to my YouTube channel, make sure to subscribe, like, and follow us on all social media platforms so you can make the best decisions. So what do? I help clients take the chaos out of wedding planning. So let's get into today's topic, which is faux flowers versus real flowers. What's the best option for you? Now, fresh flowers are timeless. They smell good. Who doesn't like fresh flowers? But faux flowers can be more realistic today. But if you're looking at something as a better cost option, which one is better? You believe it or not, sometimes faux is not cheaper than fresh. So let's get into faux versus fresh, because a lot of people think that they can't do both or mix the two together. So let's look at cost comparison of fresh versus faux flowers. So at the end of the day, fresh flowers usually cost more than faux. It just depends on the time of year and the type of flowers you're using. So if you're getting married around Mother's Day or Valentine's Day, that's an immediate no, because cost of flowers are gonna cost more. If you're into a certain flower that's more popular in the summer than in the winter, and they have to be shipped in from very far and abroad, or specialized, or if you want a special color and they have to be dyed or sprayed, you're gonna pay more for fresh flowers. But truth be told, florists, event planners will mix the two. A lot of times when you see these big over-the-top weddings with these huge floral installations, a lot of times we have this rule that what you can touch is fresh and what's up high that you can't touch is faux. So a lot of times in the ceiling there are faux flowers, and the reason why is because it takes a lot of manpower to do all of that, and most of those things would not survive for days on end that it takes to build out these beautiful, huge floral arrangements. Now, it can be done, but it's a huge cost when you see these over-the-top multi-million-dollar, hundreds of thousands of dollar weddings, okay? But you can use fresh and faux. You just have to buy good quality faux flowers. So I like both. Sometimes a flower is not available, and cost-wise, it's better to use a faux mixed with fresh. So sometimes, even on floral arrangements you can touch, we will use fresh and faux together because of availability, sometimes the color and the cost. You know, cost is always an issue. Prices fluctuate. There's no real reason or way that we can control the cost of that. It is what it is. Most flowers are flown in, and florists have to order in excess of what they need. So they can't just order like 3 of a rose or 3 of this. Most times they have to order in allotments of a dozen or multiple dozens. So they can't just order 1 or 2 flowers, and you have to pay for that. And flowers do, because they are perishable, will come dead sometime. So I can remember during COVID, it was a mess. Flowers were so hard to come by. You couldn't find white flowers, silk, or fresh. And when they came in, there was a strike with growers, and one of the countries that where a lot of flowers come from, it was a disaster. Trying to get the flowers in was a disaster. Some of the flowers came in burned, scorched because they traveled on ice. Sometimes they were in lockers too long. The flights were delayed. It was a mess. So that can happen. And there's a huge liability associated with fresh versus faux. So you may pay more depending on the grade and the type of flower. Orchids are going to always be more than a rose, rose spray. Looking at baby's breath is not going to be as expensive as maybe hydrangeas. So, certain flowers, lilies, those type of things, depending on the type of flower you pick. Orchids, like I said, orchids, lilies, those things cost a little bit more money. Certain colors are not available in certain flowers, so you have to do custom dyeing, or you have to use silk, or now real touch flowers or faux flowers. So real touch flowers look like real flowers. They feel like real flowers a little bit, and they cost just as much sometimes as fresh. So the question is, which is cheaper? Sometimes it's not cheaper to go fresh Sometimes it's not cheaper to go faux. It just really depends on your design of your event and what your aesthetic is and what your desires and likes are. So if you like expensive flowers, you're going to pay more. And to get that real look versus a silk flower versus a faux rubber flower, the faux is always going to cost more than the silk. And sometimes the silks are expensive, but when you want that real touch where it looks like a real flower, but it's not, it's gonna sometimes cost you more. So it's just a matter of choosing the best option. That's why it's important to ask the right questions with your florist. We have a great checklist when you're hiring a florist, whether you're doing the decorations yourself or you're hiring a decorator or you're hiring a planner. You want to ask those questions, availability. You want to have your color swatches, hey, this is the color I want to go with, because that matters when deciding, and sometimes florists and planners can offer an alternative, whether faux or fresh, where you can rent the faux and they come at the end of the night and take the faux flowers back and you can take all the fresh. But you want to make sure you ask those right questions. Will I keep these? Am I paying for it? Am I renting them? The vases are usually always rented. Anything that is structured that holds the flowers is usually always rented. How much time, if you're doing on-site setup, all of those things are important when deciding on fresh versus faux, because that'll determine the longevity and the lifespan of the flowers. And at the end of the day, it's a huge liability for florists. So they're going to charge you more because they need to order in excess, because they can't just order 5 of a particular flower or half a dozen. They have to order in excess because flowers are perishable. So the question, which is cheaper? Most times fresh is more than faux. But I tell couples all the time, especially a bride, on the day of your wedding, you want your bouquet to be special. So if you have to go with silk or faux, rubber, real touch flowers, spend a little bit more on your bouquet. If you want to keep it, maybe going with the faux bouquet is better if you want to, keep it. But if you want to keep it and press it, some brides do that. But you will spend more during certain times of the year, winter months, Mother's Day, Valentine's Day. You get married during those holidays, you're going to spend a little bit more. So availability, color, cost, all of that is associated with it. But it's not always cheaper to go faux. So just think about that. So the best thing to do is have a consultation with a florist and your designer to make the best option. Let them give you some options for that. Another thing I just touched on a little bit, longevity and practicality. So, when you're going to a venue, you want to have these huge custom installations, florals in the ceiling and all of that. You will sometimes have to go with the silk or faux because it's just going to cost more. And logistically, it's a nightmare to try to keep them alive in a space. If you're getting married outside, maybe faux is a better option mixed with some fresh, because they can die in the sun. The elements will kill flowers depending on which flowers you choose. So that is very important. Getting married outside, they can be scorched by the heat. They can die from the wind, from being cold. So all of that is important. You have to think about the practicality when choosing fresh versus faux flowers. So again, longevity, fresh is perishable and they won't always last. Here's another thing, aesthetics. Realism is a big thing. Some clients like, I do not want to see a silk or faux rubber flower. No way, I want all fresh. Well, it costs more to do that. And that's an option. That's a choice. So if that's your option and you just want all fresh, then you're doing things. But I tell clients, when we have to be budget conscious, we don't have to have flowers everywhere. You create focal points in the space. If you're doing a flower wall, the flower wall doesn't have to be fresh. Now, if you just say it has to be fresh, then, that's a lot of production costs to build that. So it just depends on your budget really and what your expectations are as far as what you're going to spend on flowers. But a good designer, a good florist will always recommend alternatives to certain fresh flowers. And it's not always about budget. Sometimes it is about availability of flowers in the time of year. So be open, manage your expectations. If you're adamant you only want fresh flowers, just understand that even in some cases just may not be feasible. And like I gave the example earlier of COVID, during that time of year, it was not possible to get a white flower anywhere. Everybody was using silk. You couldn't even get silk. So people were borrowing silks from each other. It was a mess. It was a disaster. So again, you just have to think about aesthetics and the realism of them. You can sometimes get away with that and nobody even knows if it's real or if it's fake. They just don't know. So if you're one of those clients who wants to be eco-friendly, then using alternatives like to dried flowers, things that, don't interfere with the environment. If you have allergies and you're like, look, I can't be around fresh flowers, there are a lot of alternatives to that where you don't have to use fresh flowers or things that don't have pollen or perfumes on them that will irritate your skin or aggravate your allergies. So use other things, you can use pressed flowers, you can use dried flowers, you can use pictures of flowers. there's a lot of alternatives out there. You can use eco-friendly recycled materials. So it does require a little more DIY and customization, but there are eco-friendly things if you choose to not use fresh or faux flowers. So there are a lot of options out there to think about if you want to conserve and not use a lot of flowers or trees or branches or things like that. You can do a lot of eco-friendly things in those situations and cases. Just to recap, you want something that's versatile, that requires a lot of customization, and faux flowers gives you a lot of customization. Like I said, floral walls most time are made with faux flowers because they last better. People stand up against them. You can do a mixture of faux and fresh. It's just a better option. You know, some people say, I gotta have fresh. You should absolutely have fresh if that's what you want. But sometimes logistically, versatility, customization just doesn't make sense. So be open to the idea. Both are good options. And sometimes when you pay for faux, you just have to buy a better grade faux to give you that real fresh, real touch look. So again, what are your thoughts about fresh versus faux flowers? So put your comments below and let us know what you think. So again, there's some great options out there. Just do your work. Make sure that you're asking the right questions of your designer and or your florist. So make sure you click the link and look at the checklist that we have available for when you're deciding or interviewing the best option for your florist so you can make the best informed decision. Because as always, girl, you can plan it. We want to give you the best skills necessary so you can be successful and don't have buyer's remorse and have the best, most stress-free wedding process ever. So again, if you like this video, again, make sure to click like and subscribe to our YouTube channel at Girl You Can Plan It with NOLA Event Planners Kim. And let's talk next time, girls. So see you next time. Make sure to follow us on all social media platforms. Again, Girl You Can Plan It. See you next time. If you like this video, please like, share, and subscribe at YouTube at Girl You Can Plan It. See you next time.